Evidence about the rich past heritage of this ancient and historic Herefordshire village is all around us. Much may be overlooked or even taken for granted. The clock of the 12th century church of St Mary's is still wound by hand. Old cider millstones, which were in use until quite recent times, now decorate many gardens.
Twice a week, that job. Twice a week, up the ladder. Saturday night and a Wednesday night. It's 70 turns on a Saturday night and 53 on a Wednesday night.
There are many strange customs, traditions and tales of folklore which specifically relate to Eardisland. The members of the Oral History Group meet each month in the White Swan to discuss their researches and to record them for future generations.
Cheers, Ron. Cheers.
I've got awful bad back. I've been out today picking apples and it's so cold and my back's really, really painful.
I believe it's been rather a bad apple crop this year.
Well, it has been such terrible weather.
Yes, I remember being told years ago that there was a custom associated with apples, something about blessing the apples. Anyone know anything about it?
Yeah, I think I know something about blessing the apples, a bit of a custom. I do know a little bit about that. Well, it seems there was a lady living in Eardisland at the turn of the century who wrote a letter in about 1880 about the custom of blessing apples. According to her, the villagers would gather round an orchard in probably Midsummer's Day, I think it probably was. And it was an important time for the community since the success of the crop was important for the local economy. Among the group would probably have been the landowner, the squire and his tenants, and maybe some other village worthies. One of these would approach the tree, sprinkle it with cider and tap it, and then say some kind of blessing while the festivities went on. Ideally, there should have been a bit of rain, but the trees would have been well sprayed with cider, and the people would have drunk quite a lot whilst they were gathered together, and that would make it an important celebration for them.
They used to make cider at the Lynch Court. I didn't buy the cider, I bought the barrel because I wanted this barrel to saw through to make a plant tub. But there happened to be some cider in it, which was undrinkable, and I poured it out on the lawn and it burnt the grass off.
When the orchard had been duly blessed, all the people then make their way home. Some a little bit worse for wear, I think.
I was going through Brian's photographs at home. I found this one of a small child and this big bull, and I wondered if you knew who it might be.
No, it's local, isn't it? One of the local farms. It would very likely be Thomas of Riddymore, perhaps. What do you think, Joe?
Oh, it could easily be Riddymore, yes. Look at the size of those horns. I wonder if that child ever threw a cake onto the bull's horns.
Cake on the bull? What's all that about, you know, Paul?
Well, do you remember the old Lancashire historian, Norman Reeves? Well, he loaned some notebooks to us to look at, and I remember looking through one of them, and he gave an account of an old custom in which the farmer would put a cake on the bull's horn around Christmas time, and the farm workers go and prod the bull with a big stick, and apparently it was quite a big custom around the turn of the century. In the old days, the farmer would have invited all his workers along to a barn where a bull was kept, and he would give each of them a stick, and they would have used it to prod the bull. Then he would put cakes or bread on the bull's horns, and each of them would goad the bull with sticks. Well, you can imagine what would have happened. The bull would have got very angry, and he would kick and toss his head until all the cakes would have been thrown off. And if they went in one direction, I think they went to the farmer's family, and if they went in the other, then they belonged to the workers. If it was a children's game, then two teams would be made, and one would represent the farmer's family and the other his workers. Of course, a model of a bull's head would be used, and the children would throw the cakes, and the man working the head would knock some in one direction and some in the other as they flew towards him. The children would collect up their winnings to see which side had the most, just as in the old days the worker would have been glad to obtain more of the bread for his family. I suppose that this was a way in which goods like cake and bread could be distributed to farm workers at special times of need, such as Christmas. It was probably a kind of social game, but also this ancient custom would have been important for providing a way by which a farmer could show additional generosity towards his workers, and thereby keep a contented workforce. And perhaps the children's parties that we still hold are a bit of a remnant of those old days, when we give presents and gifts to the host in exchange for food and drink. And even the idea of providing a birthday cake and lighting candles and blowing them out are all examples of ancient customs which we still celebrate.
You know, being such a rural area, there must be all sorts of customs to do with farming locally.
Yeah, well, there were many the old fertility customs years ago, weren't there?
Yeah.
There's that one I heard about men running across fields with burning poles. And all
Well, I've read about that recently. There was a diary of a lady writing when she was a little girl. She actually saw that custom acted out in the field with a guy running across lands or ridges with a burning pole.
Do we know what a land or ridge is, how big it is to run across?
I had no idea, never heard. The one bloke who would know, Bill Blatchford, I'll bet.
Yeah, like in the old days when we ploughed horses, they put the two fellows up to start and they went round and round it until it got uneconomic, if you like, in terms of manpower to walk that distance any further. So they started another one to the right or left, whichever side of the field they started to plough, and they would do the same. And then they would work then the opposite way, so that they got narrower and narrower until they finished at what they called a rean. And so we you know, the copse and reans are the start and the finish. Right. And the land is the amount of land which was left between the two copses.
This custom, which seems to have died out at about the turn of the century, was to hopefully ensure a good harvest. There were several variations, including this one, where the local farmer or bailiff would give one or two farm workers a pole with burning straw on the top. They then had to run with them, burning, across 12 lands of wheat. If they were still alight by the 13th, then a good harvest could be expected. The men were usually followed by cheering children. That'll be a good harvest now. Good harvest. Burning well. On reaching the end of the field, there would be a gathering of villagers, including perhaps the landowner and the squire. Toasts to a good harvest would then be drank. And sometimes a special fruit cake would be shared to end this happy village event.
Yeah, well, that's what he did.
I dug this up in the garden the other day. I wonder what it is.
Wow.
I found it. It's near the river.
Isn't that wonderful? That's an old arrowhead. Look at that, Pat. Old iron arrowhead.
Oh, that's very old. That's been in the ground some time. And there's a lot of history associated with Eardisland. Have you seen anything like that, Brian?
Well, our arm has been coming through Eardisland for centuries. Like the Romans came through, and it's said that Henry V camped at Burton Court.
Hey, and I can tell you a legend about an arrow.
Well,
It is reputed that in around about 1500, some 25 years after the Battle of Mortimer's Cross, Harry of Richmond was on campaign in this area. When his scouts reported that they had found a place on the River Arrow for the army to cross, he was reminded of the saying that he who shoots the arrow first would win the battle. Thus encouraged, the army crossed the river, confident that they would be victorious. It may well be that this is a true historical event, and perhaps he did go on to win a battle. Anyway, it has endured as a piece of local folklore.
What's that, John?
Well, you know this one, the old Eardisland bat. Our name on it again for last year.
Oh, excellent, yes. It's a lovely bit of old willow, that is, isn't it?
It
Do you think
is.
that's a local willow tree?
Gotta be, isn't it? They were made locally, I believe.
Have you seen
Yes.
that, John?
It's grand, yes. Why are willows called saddy trees?
Well, I think it must be from the word salix, the old Latin word of salix. Derived sadly from that, like.
yeah. Well, there are several customs surrounding this alley tree to do with its healing powers, apparently, isn't there?
I wonder if there's a lot of old wives' tales there, do you
I
think?
don't know. I don't know. There's something more in it than that, isn't there? Aspirin coming from salic acid, you see. There's something in it, I think. Yes. There's a lot in these old tales, like. Yeah.
I wonder, Brian, what are these old customs that you've heard about then, to do with the willow?
Well, I think I can throw some light on this because I read in a book somewhere. The old custom of passing a child through a willow tree for a rupture of hernia had been recorded by Ella Mary Leather at the turn of the century. The last tree known to be used for this custom is said to be one up the Lynch Fields. The child would be passed through a willow which had divided or split. The infant would have been passed from one parent to another person 9 times. Each time a small prayer would be said, such as, "What the Lord giveth, the Lord receiveth." No doubt there would be a lot of other people there watching, and this is probably one of the ways in which customs got passed from one generation to the next. After 9 times, the future health of the child would have been toasted by the onlookers, probably with local cider. Like many old customs, it would have been seen to bring good health to all the village.
God, you see the lights flicker then? It's a bit eerie. It's a bit ghostly, isn't it?
Yeah, did you know there's a ghost in this pub?
You're joking.
Oh yes, in the front bedroom.
Oh no.
She opens the curtains and closes them.
You're joking?
No,
Funnily enough, we're saying about ghosts. I've got this letter that I brought to the meeting tonight, and it's from a lady called Peggy Olson. She was staying in the village, and she wrote a letter, and it says, "I remember staying in the village B&B with a Canadian lady who said she had seen a tall man wearing a black cloak and a large brimmed hat looking out of the window late at night. He turned, disappeared through a wall, and after some time, some shining words appeared on a beam. Mrs. Rimmer, who lived there a little bit later on, said that she often saw a shadow pass her on the stairs, and she called it our ghost. And there's also supposed to be a witchy sort of a ghost under the bridge, down by the Arrow. I'm not sure if that's true or not. Those are the stories I know.
Pat, I remember when I interviewed your mum for the book. She said she'd had some sort of ghost experience.
Mum often used to tell the story of how she went into this old house in the village to look after it while the owners were away, and put the hot water bottles in the beds to keep them aired. And she went in this one evening and lit the candle and approached the staircase. She went up a few steps and felt a horrible presence. She went home, quite convinced that there was a strange, ghostly presence there, and she didn't return to the house for many years after.
Oh, listen, Paul, there's somebody playing a fiddle in the bar.
Oh, so there is, yes. Very good player too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Team, come and listen to this.
Excellent.
Who is it?
I think it must be probably Colin Cole, isn't it? He's the local village fiddle player, isn't he? I've heard him play a few times in the village hall. And I've often thought that probably many villages in the past must have had a fiddle player because they want them for the Christmas parties and for all kinds of entertainment. And I suppose they would have been a very important member of the community, just as obviously Colin is for us.
Yeah. Well, we know that Eardisland had a fiddle player years ago because the old story, the Fiddler of Eardisland.
I know that story.
Yeah?
Fiddler of Eardisland went off one day to play in a dance at Pembridge. At the end of the night, when he got home, he found he'd forgotten his hat and gloves. He rushed back to get them and found to his amazement that old Pembridge had disappeared into the marshes. The dancers, the village, the lot. It was said that when the coins dropped into a local well, it could be heard striking the bell tower of the lost church. Sometimes people or villages might disappear through flash floods. Perhaps this bit of folklore was a way of helping people understand these disasters.
So after we keep it that way.
Or by sound and it in the air. And its shape is most important, look. You must have a good belly, fat belly, like a beer drinker. You must have a good back as well.
Yes, I see.
And the grain.
Yes,
grain is important, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Oh, shaping is the main thing. This one will sound different. See, you see the difference in the tone.
Yes. That's lovely. And why did you choose? You chose Nixon just because he happened to be famous at the time when you were making it, and you.
No, it just came out.
Right. And what about the other one you've got there?
Oh well, he's almost like another politician, the old Attlee. Remember?
Yes, I do,
He looks like it. I don't know why it happens like that, you know.
And how's that one sound? I wonder. What's the?
Oh, this one's not so sharp. Mine. On that one, it's pine top.
Yeah.
On this one, it's spruce. You see, that's the difference in the sound.
I see.
Quite, you know, a little bit.
A little different, isn't it?
Yeah.
What you got there, Tina?
I'm not quite sure. I think it's a wedding.
Look. Oh, yeah, certainly looks like a wedding car, but I'm not quite sure what that is across the front. A rope of some sort? What's that?
Oh, yes. That's definitely a wedding. It happened to me at my wedding.
What happened?
Well, they roped the car.
What do you mean, roped the car?
We used to have this custom in Eardisland when anyone got married. When the happy couple left the church and got in the wedding car, the local kids would get a rope, put it across the road and then hide on each side of the road. When the car came, the children would pull the rope up tight so that the car couldn't go by. The groom, and sometimes the bride, had to throw some change out of the window, and the local kids would gather round and pick it up and fight over it.
Hold out in a hurry. With noise.
And then they'd cheer and let the rope down and off the couple would go. I suppose it was a custom to ensure a long and happy marriage. My husband, it cost him about £half 39 years ago, so it probably worked. Mind you, Leslie Evans can tell you a good story about this.
Yes, when I was coming back from my honeymoon, they, because I wasn't married here, you see, I was married somewhere else, and I went away on my honeymoon, and when we came back to Leominster by train, Jim Boy met us at the station, and he knew what they were going to do. So instead of coming up the ordinary road, we came back round through Monkland. So that was that.
So you didn't have to pay the money?
No, well, we didn't even see them.
But of course today it's all done with reversible ploughing now, and these they don't have these fertility rites and ancient things. They reach for their fertilizer bag, don't they, or the pill or whatever from the doctor. You know, it's scientists is taking over now.
Film taken between the 1940s and the 1970s shows how little things have changed in some areas of village life. The hunt is still to be seen. Ponds may still be dredged with archaic traction engines, although it is true to say the most ancient customs have gone and passed from folk memory. But perhaps some may now be preserved, and in time, maybe new ones will replace them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's a shame a lot of them have died out now, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I don't know what will happen. There's only one or two, the old wedding one.
I think there's a custom that should never die out.
And what's that?
Who's going to get the next round?
Yeah, not even much.
Across the ocean, but oh, I'd rather stay. Yet I hope you'll sometimes think of me when I am far away. Oh, how my heart still clings to thee, dear Eardisland, my belle. I fain would live and die in thee, but now alas, farewell. I'm going across the ocean, but oh, I'd rather stay. Yet I hope you'll sometimes think of me when I am far away.